Good Wednesday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for August the 23rd. Today we are reading together here in 2 Samuel chapter 21, which is basically kind of like an appendix that's been added on, it seems, to the end of the events that kind of follow some sort of a sequential order in the book of 2 Samuel. It's begun with this phrase in chapter 21 and verse number 1, during David's reign. So at some point during David's reign, we have these things that are mentioned in chapters 21, 22, 23, and 24 having taken place. So basically that's what we have here in these last four chapters are just some events that occurred during the time of David's reign that give us just some more insight into what took place during those years, and really in some ways tying up some loose ends to some various things that have taken place up to this point. So let me go ahead and get 2 Samuel chapter 21 on the screen, and we'll read along together here. 2 Samuel chapter 21 and verse number 1. 2 Samuel 21, verse number 1, during David's reign, there was a famine for 3 consecutive years, or three successive years. So David inquired of Yahweh. Yahweh answered, "It is due to Saul and his bloody or bloodthirsty family, because he killed the Gibeonites." The Gibeonites were not Israelites, but rather a remnant of the Amorites. The Israelites had taken an oath concerning them, but Saul had tried to kill them in his zeal for the Israelites in Judah. So David summoned the Gibeonites and spoke to them. He asked the Gibeonites, "What should I do for you? How can I make atonement so that you will bring a blessing on Yahweh's inheritance?" The Gibeonites said to him, "We are not asking for silver and gold from Saul or his family, and we cannot put anyone to death in Israel." "Whatever you say, I will do for you," David said. They replied to the king, "As for the man who annihilated us and plotted to destroy us so we would not exist within the whole territory of Israel, let 7 of his male descendants be handed over to us so we may hang them in the presence of Yahweh at Gibeah of Saul, the Yahweh's chosen." The king answered, "I will hand them over." So David spared Mephibosheth, the son of Saul's son Jonathan, because of the oath of Yahweh that was between David and Jonathan, Saul's son. But the king took Armoni, Mephibosheth, this seems to be a different Mephibosheth, who were the 2 sons whom Rizpah, daughter of Aiah, had borne to Saul, and the 5 sons whom Merab, daughter of Saul, had borne to Adriel, son of Barzillai, the Maholathite, and handed them over to the Gibeonites. They hanged them on the hill in the presence of Yahweh. The 7 of them died together. They were executed in the first days of the harvest, at the beginning of the barley harvest. Rizpah, Aiah's daughter, took sackcloth and spread it out for herself on the rock from the beginning of the harvest until the rain poured down from heaven on the bodies. She kept the birds of the sky from them by day and the wild animals by night. When it was reported to David what Saul's concubine Rizpah, daughter of Aiah, had done, he went and got the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan from the citizens of Jabesh Gilead. They had stolen them from the public square of Beth Shan, where the Philistines had hung the bodies the day the Philistines killed Saul at Gilboa. David had the bones brought from there. They gathered up the bones of Saul's family who had been hanged, and buried the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan at Zelah in the land of Benjamin, in the tomb of Saul's father Kish. They did everything the king commanded, and after this, God was receptive to the prayers for the land. The Philistines again waged war against Israel. David went down with his soldiers, and they fought the Philistines, but David became exhausted. Then Ishbi Benob, one of the descendants of the giant, whose bronze spear weighed about 8 pounds, and who had new armor, intended to kill David. But Abishai, son of Zeruiah, came to his aid, struck the Philistine, and killed him. Then David's men swore to him, "You must never again go out to battle with us. You cannot extinguish the lamp of Israel." After this, there was another battle with the Philistines at Gob. At that time, Sibbecai, the Hushathite, killed Saph, one of the descendants of the giants. Once again, there was a battle with the Philistines at Gob, and Elhanan, son of Jaare-Oregim, the Bethlehemites, killed Goliath of Gath. The shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam. At Gath, there was still another battle. A huge man was there with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 digits in all. He too was descended from the giants. When he taunted Israel, Jonathan, son of David's brother Shimei, killed him. These 4 were descended from the giant in Gath and were killed by David and his soldiers. And that is 2 Samuel chapter 21. So a lot of killing taking place here within this particular story. Again, this is taking place sometime within the days of David's reign. And during this time, again, we don't know when exactly this was. We have 3 years of famine that have taken place. A drought probably was associated with this as well. And David doesn't know what the deal is. Eventually, he's thinking, I need to ask, the Lord about what's going on. So he asks Yahweh, and Yahweh says that this famine is directly a result of Saul and his bloodthirsty family because he had killed the Gibeonites. We remember going back to Joshua chapter 9 that the Gibeonites had made a vow with Israel. Remember, Israel was supposed to kill and annihilate, carry out herem against all of the inhabitants of Canaan. But for those who were far away, they were able to make a treaty with them. Well, the Gibeonites came to Joshua and Israel and pretended like they were from far away. They were able to enter into this treaty with Israel, and they were supposed to honor this treaty. God told them they needed to honor it. So they were supposed to take care of the Gibeonites and provide for them. We see a couple of instances where they did this, and the Gibeonites served an important purpose within Israel as servants in various ways. Well, the text tells us that Saul did not honor this oath, but instead he tried to kill all the Gibeonites. So interesting. And he was so dead set on killing these Gibeonites, but not taking care of the other pagan people within the land of whom he did not have a treaty with. But nonetheless, David now knows about this sin that has not been atoned for, and he goes and he asks specifically, what can I do? How can I make atonement so that you will bring a blessing on Yahweh's inheritance, so that this famine, this drought, whatever it was that was plaguing the land, that it can go away? And they said, well, we don't want gold or silver, and we can't kill anybody ourselves. Well, what do you want? So they said, well, you can give us 7 of the male descendants of the man who tried to annihilate us, and in doing so, this will be atoned for. Blood was shed. So in order to rectify that shed blood, more blood had to be shed to make the payment for that. David says, okay, fine, we'll do that. He does not send Mephibosheth. Again, he has a vow with Jonathan to care for his descendants, but there were 7 other men who end up going and being put to death in the presence of Yahweh. And someone might think, well, that's just not fair. How come these innocent men are guilty for what had been done previously? I'll suggest to you that going back to verse number 1, it's it's very possible that these men were co-conspirators with Saul in what he had done. It wasn't just due to Saul killing the Gibeonites, but it says Saul and his bloody family. Some translations say his bloodthirsty family. So I think it's quite reasonable, if not probable, that these men were those who were guilty of doing this, breaking this oath and trying to eradicate the Gibeonites from the land when they should not have done that. So really what's happening here is that those who were guilty are being they're being held accountable for their sins. It's very, very real possibility what's going on here. But it really just shows us as well that atonement's messy. You think about our atonement that Jesus offered for us. He certainly did not deserve to die for our sins, but he did. Again, atonement is messy. Well, we have Rizpah, who is Aiah's daughter, who goes and she doesn't want for these bodies to be disgraced. So she performs this loving act of service, keeping the birds of the sky from taking the bodies, and again disgracing them and the animals at night from doing so as well. David hears that she is doing this, and so he begins to collect all the bones of the bodies of Saul's family. Remember, the Philistines had taken the body and had set it up as like a trophy, but those bones had been stolen back by the people of Jabesh Gilead. So David takes everybody from the house of Saul. He shows again more continued kindness to the house of Saul by getting their bones and putting them all together within the tomb of his father Kish. And when this happened, and when everybody did what the king had commanded, then we read that God was receptive to prayer for the land. Everything had been righted. The sins that had not been atoned for had now been atoned for, and things could be good once again. But that doesn't mean everything within the land from then on was going to be fine. There's still war that's being waged between the Israelites and the Philistines, but the Philistines were probably the most common enemy that David faced throughout his reign. And we see that one time he was fighting against them, and there was a big old warrior. His name was Ishbi Benob. He was a descendant of the giant, so probably a pretty big man himself. He had a big old spear that weighed 8 pounds, and he had new armor. He wanted to kill David, and David's exhausted, and Abishai steps up and is able to strike down this giant and save David. And then they tell him, hey, David, probably time for you to not go out to battle anymore. So why don't you just hang out here and just be a leader from a distance? How about you do that? And some speculate maybe that's kind of the background of what's going on in back in 2 Samuel chapter 11, where everybody else went out to war, but David did not. Maybe that plays into that some as well. After that, we have 3 other instances of these giants. We have Soph. We have the CSB says Goliath of Gath, but also says the brother of Goliath of Gath. And then finally, we have this other 24-digited giant who had 12 fingers and 12 toes, and how he was struck down as well. It's possible that this Goliath of Gath was kind of a name given to the champion of the Philistines, whoever that might have been, or like I said, this could also be the brother of that Goliath that's killed here as well. But regardless of what this is, we see that David and his warriors have great success against these Philistines. And of course, who gives that success? Well, God does. God gives them success, because really, if you think about it from just a purely pure battle perspective, giants probably going to be better than these normal sized regular people. But whenever you have God on your side, whenever you have, again, going back to the previous part where God is now receptive to prayer in the land. I'm not saying that these events are connected to one another, but again, whenever you have God on your side and things are well, then certainly you do have the best chance to be successful, because if God is with you, then really who can be against you? We see that here within this text. In our text tomorrow in 2 Samuel chapter 22, we're going to see a song of thanksgiving from David. We know that David was not just a valiant warrior, but he was also a very skilled musician. That's going back to the days where he used to soothe Saul whenever the spirit came upon him, the evil spirit came upon him. And we know that he is an author of many of the Psalms we have in our Psalter. So I'm excited to read along with you here in 2 Samuel chapter 22 and read about this song of thanksgiving that David offers up. If you have any questions or comments about this text here in 2 Samuel 21, please feel free to leave that in the comment section below. Looking forward to reading with you again tomorrow, and also to being with everybody tonight for our Bible studies at 7 p.m. Hope to see you there. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, everybody. Take care, and God bless.